Hi, my name's Steve Holland, and I'm here answering questions about my new book, The Trials of Hank Janson. How did I first get into Hank Janson? It all dates back rather a long time ago. I'm a very old man now. It all dates back to when I was at school. We had a school project, and I decided that I was going to write about science fiction magazines. I was very enamoured of Mike Ashley's History of the Science Fiction Magazines at the time. So I was going to do all this wonderful history of British science fiction magazines, and I went out to Dagenham to the Science Fiction Foundation, where the people running it were David Pringle and Malcolm Edwards. Now, much better known for other things than sitting around in a small library looking after a school kid who was running around reading pulp magazines for the first time. It was also the first time I'd come across Vargo Statten and borrowed some of those, because I was a member of the British Science Fiction Association, and you were actually allowed to borrow from the Foundation Library. So anyway, I was in touch with Phil Harbottle, who also put me in touch with Mike Ashley. So this project was steaming ahead. And eventually I was digging around into all sorts of different magazines. I'll tell you what happened with the project first. The project began to shrink in scope. It was going to be like 50 years of science fiction magazines, and then it got down to the beginning in the 1930s and up to and including New Worlds, which folded in the 1970s originally, or stopped being a magazine and became a book series. Then it shrank even further until it became about one magazine that had one issue, a little magazine, not even a famous one, a little magazine called Outlands. And my plan was to actually publish issue 2 of Outlands. And I got stories and information about some of the authors of the first issue, and the story of Outlands from the editor, Leslie Johnson. And all my huge scope had shrank down to just the one magazine. Anyway, during all of this, of course, New Worlds was founded in 1946, and that would have been part of my original plan, was to cover that. So I was trying to get in touch with people. People like Ted Carnell had already died, and I got in touch with Walter Gillings, but unfortunately Walter was not well at that time, and we subsequently heard that he had died. So this would be 1979. So I'd have been 16 or 17. And one of the people that I wanted to get in touch with was Stephen Francis, who was the first publisher of New Worlds. But by the time I contacted him, the scope of the project had shrunk. So I wasn't really asking him about New Worlds anymore. But what had happened is that I had bought some Hank Janson books from a chap called Derek Thompson. The first one I bought was Whiplash. I was already a fan of James Hadley Chase, because when I was growing up, my dad used to love James Hadley Chase, and I used to read whatever my dad left laying around, and that included James Hadley Chase. So when I was 11 and going for an interview at the local grammar school, and they said, what are your hobbies? I said, well, I like reading. And they said, oh, well, what are you reading? And I said, a book called 12 Chinks and a Woman. Yeah, I am very surprised I actually got into that school, but there you go. So I was already keen on the sort of hard-boiled, sexy crime novels that Hank Janson wrote. I'd read a few Peter Cheneys as well and things like that. So this book was fantastic. Whiplash, I think, was the very first one that I read, and I really liked it. So I bought a couple of others and ploughed through them. And when it came to contacting Stephen Francis, I talked about Hank Janson rather than New Worlds. So that was how I came to both read Hank Janson and correspond with Hank Janson.